introduce to you one of Hampton's most illustrious alumni, John Thomas Biggers. John Biggers was born in Gastonia, North Carolina, and he came to Hampton in 1941 with the idea that he would study plumbing. After taking one evening art class from the noted and very famous art educator Victor Lowenfeld, John Biggers changed his major to become an art student, and he went from Hampton after studying here to become now one of America's most famous, one of America's greatest living artists. John Biggers' education at Hampton was interrupted by service in the Navy in World War II. And after the war, he came back to resume his studies here, but his mentor, Dr. Lowenfeld, left Hampton to take a job at Pennsylvania State University. And so John Biggers followed him to Penn State, and there he completed his undergraduate degree, his master's, and finally his doctorate degree in art and art education. In 1949, John Biggers and his wife Hazel, also a Hampton graduate, moved to Houston, Texas, where he founded the art department at what is now Texas Southern University. And there he headed that department and built a program that had a national reputation for training both artists and art educators until his retirement in the early 1980s. John Biggers and Hazel Biggers in the mid-1950s were the first African-American artists to travel to Africa to study the art and the culture and the people of that continent and to have it influence his own work. And you'll see that in his work as he talks about it this evening. He is known not only as a painter and a printmaker and a sculptor, but also as one of America's foremost muralists, and he's completed, as of this date, 23 major murals, including the two wonderful murals that are in the atrium of our Harvey Library here on the campus. Today, John Biggers is known around the nation. There is a traveling exhibition of his work, including 125 major pieces, paintings, sculpture, and works on paper, that are traveling to several of America's most noted art museums, and we're really fortunate that next fall that show will come to Hampton. John Biggers now is finally gaining the international recognition that his work has long deserved, with, in the last several years, 2 major books published on his work, including one just published this fall by Hampton University on his murals. Tonight, Dr. Biggers will talk about his career and his life as an artist. So please join me in welcoming Dr. John Biggers.
Hazel and I would like to thank the greatest freshman class that's ever been in Hampton. All right. You do know why you're the greatest. Whenever you occupy this building, you see, you can only do that for 1 year. That means you are the greatest class. As I saw Dr. Harvey coming in, I told Dr. Harvey about the other guests that you have on your campus. I said I had told her all along that Hampton was next door to heaven. I said, I think she agrees that Hampton is not next door. Hampton might be a part of heaven. So you must remember that. And to be in these seats as freshmen, that can only happen one time in life. And exactly 50-some years ago, I believe it was 56 years ago, I sat in this seat. And it was here that whatever my life has been, it was inspired in this building. You see the figure 8 up in the center of the building. That's an octagon. And the octagon is multiplied It is the answer to two squares. And those of you who follow the Bible or follow that point of view know that John saw the perfect city, the four-square city. You have the double city here. It's eight, it's the octagon. You see? And that is the meaning of this auditorium. You are part of the octagon. 64, the number 64, is the number of your beautiful chapel to the right. When you multiply 8 by 8, you get 64, which is the pure square. And that's that is the four-square city. That represents a perfection. Now, oh, I forgot about it. Oh. But Hazel and I want to thank Mr. and Mrs. Harvey, the president and his wife, and the faculty, and all of you at Hampton. But especially do we want to thank Jean Zeiler and her staff, Barbara Force and her staff, and the general faculty and student body for having us here to speak with you about art. We have come especially for the publishing of a book on the murals that I've done by the author who is with us tonight, Dr. Ollie Tyson. Dr. Ollie Tyson, would you stand up so they can see you? Hampton has always been first in so many things. But you're going to be first next year in one of the most important things that can happen in the future. You're going to have the most beautiful museum in this country. And the reason why it will be so beautiful, and it is beautiful, it is not only the structure in which it's in, but it's the collections that are there. The General Armstrong that founded Hampton, he built a museum before he built a classroom. You all know why. When you have a museum and the products of the human family of man, this is an institution. It becomes an institution of learning and philosophy. That's what art is. And that's why Hampton again will lead the way. When General Armstrong first founded a museum at Hampton, he led the way. There was no other school that had a museum. This was original and pristine. And so today, Hampton is getting ready to make another leap in the many adventures and pioneering that it does. And you are part of it. You are freshmen when this happens. So you're going to have 4 years to be with this great new institution that will answer needs for American culture and civilization. As America becomes more electronic, as engineering will characterize its nature, you will have to have, in order to survive, you will have to have work and language of the human heart. This will be its balance. And this is again why Hampton will lead in making America achieve its rightful future. Tonight I want to talk with you and show you slides that have come from 3 aspects of my personal endeavors. Last night, if you attended uh, Dr. Ollie Tyson's lecture, she spoke on the murals. Tonight, I'm going to talk about drawings and paintings. Okay? The three aspects will be the birth. The journey began here at Hampton. Then we will talk about Africa. And then we will talk about the return and what the beginning here in the African experience did for the work over the past 10 or 12 years. This is how we're going to approach the problem. So may we begin. Okay. That you jump on. Okay. This picture is called Crossing the Bridge. It was the very first picture that we did in 1941-42. Crossing the bridge means moving from one life to another, moving from one environment to another. This was taking place when World War II was beginning. War was going on in Europe. During my freshman year, Pearl Harbor was struck. This country went to war. People were leaving their hometowns. They were leaving their villages. They were leaving the rurals, moving to the cities and to other parts. This was happening in Europe. People were moving. There was mass movement because there was war. A change came upon the world. My first effort at art is called Crossing the Bridge. And there's the family here. And the family was important to me in the beginning. The family is most important to me today. So you will consistently see the family group as you look at my things as we go along. But I want to point out some things here. First, I want you to look at the bridge. Every plank has been painted. This bridge was near my house. It wasn't near like this one. This is how I dreamed about it. The boards were half trees and had the round quality. And when a wagon or horse-driven buggy or a T-Mall Ford crossed it, you could tell the nature of the vehicle by the sound that it made crossing these logs. It was almost like a musical instrument. And when I first saw the African xylophone, I thought of the bridge. These are two things. This is a symbol that I started using. So the bridge is crossing. There's a music in crossing. And there's a music when we walk. But at this time, I was new. I was just beginning this course in art. And so I couldn't paint faces. And what did we do? We turned all the heads. Okay? I couldn't even make hands or feet. Those are little paws. I couldn't even make a tree. These are leaves. These are aspects of form that I have been working on since this beginning. But this is the beginning. So I'm only simply saying that whatever we achieve, there has to be a start. Then the struggle begins. And the more we struggle and the longer we work, we have goals set to reach there. So you see where we started. Anybody, any person who can work a math problem, who's got an order in his head, could have done that. But it was the beginning. It was my beginning. I was very conscious of our social problems in America, of the culture of America. I was born south of here in North Carolina in a very small town, a little mill town. And there was great restriction. also during that period of time, there was a lot of lynchings in the South. I reacted to this, and this is what I painted. I painted a crucifixion. And if you look at this carefully, you'll again see that I was not able to paint feet yet. That's a little paw. You will also see that the hands, there's an effort at painting them, but fingers and that type of thing has not been worked out. If you look at the face, it's completely linear. A line characterizes mouth, nose, eyes. There's not a form of light and dark there. I haven't found that yet. I'm just beginning. But I have a great desire to speak about what's on my heart. I had a desire to talk about the restrictions that we face, the fears that we have. So this is, I'm trying to say something about my own condition, about my own life. The next thing that I got involved in came in December. Pearl Harbor was struck. War began. All the men here, and many volunteered on that day, but we all figured we'd be a part of the war before it ended. We knew that our one great opportunity of going to college would end. This was a fantastic experience. I felt and pictured myself on the battlefield. This is really a self-portrait. You might say it is John Biggers crucified in war. And I was attempting to project and feel what would happen to the future, to my future, to me as an individual, what I would be giving my life to and for. And you can see the drama. You see the freshman drama here. Everything is really over-dramatized. But this is what this is. It's an experience projected in terms of one going to war, one making the great sacrifice. I made these drawings on pieces of board. I didn't know at that time I was doing a mural. I was doing a mural before I knew the name. When I started bringing these drawings into the classroom, Victor Lowenfeld, the art teacher, said, "John, you're making a mural. We must pull these things together." So all of the drawings that we made depicting the thoughts of the guy that's dying, this represents it. This characterizes it. And there was memories of mother, of girlfriend, of wife. There was these dear, wonderful memories. And remember, all of this is projection. I have not gone. I'm still in Hampton. But I know I will have to go soon. There are all sorts of memories, and each was done on a piece of cardboard. These are show card boards in which you printed posters, done with pencils. There were problems at that time. You see the blind man, and you also see the rape. These kind of problems have always persisted. But in the last thoughts of a person that's dying, that which is important would probably flash before their faces. It is a matter of being involved in expressing truly your own fears, your own frustrations, expressing your desires, your yearning. And this was the urge. This is what motivated. It was not an aesthetic. It was to express the inner meaning of the heart, inner meaning of the gut. This was the basis of the art. And one may not even call this art, maybe, or not the highest form of art, but it was the human expression. And art without human expression, I don't know whether it's not. I don't know. It only might be illustration. This environment that I had come from in North Carolina was potent. And we were motivated to express the meaning of our own lives. We were motivated to tell the story of our daily life, how people live, how they struggle, how they work, how they fed their families. So this represents what I call the term is gleaners. You know, Millet made his gleaners in the field. That was a reproduction that we had in our high school. I looked at it for 4 years, the gleaners. It was one of the most beautiful pictures, and it still is in my collection, mental collection. One of the most beautiful pictures, because it showed the women taking the substance from the earth to feed their families. Here, they're picking up little pieces of coal off the railroad track. Notice the factories in the far distance. They're shut down. There's no light in there. The city is remote. It's a cold color. It is not even related to these people here. And this is the really way we felt in Gastonia when we lived on that side of town. Downtown was a strange country, and it was across the railroad tracks. And this is where the tracks took on a meaning for me. And you will see in my work the tracks keep getting repeated, because it becomes a symbol of division. It becomes also a symbol of escape. So you have these opposite forces working. And I don't know whether any of you have ever heard of a great folk guitar player, Lead Belly. He picked songs about the railroad. And if you haven't heard about him, you should go into your musical library and find him. He has something to say to you. And especially those of you who want to become poets, who want to become artists, who want to use words and put rhythm and music to them. You should go and listen to him. I listen to him. I still do. But this is the environment that I've come from, and this is what I'm attempting to talk about. Actually, I don't know any other environment. And I think every artist must speak about his world, the world that he's a part of. This is the detail of the tops of the shacks in the city. You see? You see the factory. The little town that I came from, Gaston County, you will read in your social histories that it was the first town in the South where labor was organized, because it had the largest textile industries in the world was there when I was a boy. And they closed down the factories there, the people struck. And the things that we knew on my side of town, that they were closed, which meant people didn't make a little bit of money that they usually made. And it had something to do with one's daily life. Going home from work is another word that deals with the locality and the environment that I have come from. And I'm showing you these things to remind us that what we have close to us, whether it is in our imagination, whether it's in our physical experiences, this is what we have to express. But it was in the time that I was coming along, it was popular and it was usual, not unusual, to speak about the social problems of your time. This was the rudimentary movement of what you finally called, what Martin Luther King did and all these other things. It had already started through a consciousness of where you are and who you are and what your limitations are. A consciousness had already started. But we're trying to show a woman who has worked all day. You know, here you might think, where's her children? She's alone. She's coming in the evening. The day is almost done. coming up a little muddy, red, rocky road, and here you see the little shotgun houses and shacks and wells and toilets along the way. But this is the environment. Also, the couple, the old couple, and the rope. You don't probably know about this. None of you probably have this kind of experience. But when I was a boy, almost weekly, there would be this kind of suffering in the environment. So we're trying to express the meaning of the environment. The old couple, the old man and woman, is it their son that is missing? The old couple again. I wanted to show the life on the outside, the life in the village, and the life on the inside. I wanted to show that even in this crudeness, there was warmth, there was tenderness, there was love. And this is the thing that counts. I wanted to show this love. I wanted to show this. And the old man and woman, she sews while he lights his pipe and reads the Bible. There's a fireplace next. They have his shoes are off. And above there, even a match is lying on the mantelpiece. The old clock. And the rough boards of the interior of the building. Also, this is a kindred drawing of the same spirit, the woman and her children. Again, the question would be asked. We hear a great deal about women who have children without fathers and husbands. We hear a great deal about that now. So this is not just a thing that happens during this period. These things were done back in the 40s. 50 years ago. This, by the way, was done on brown cardboard box. Drawing paper was not easy to come by at that time. It was very expensive. And this was the garbage man. When I see people, what we call street people today, that was street people when I was a kid. And the old garbage man went through the alleys, behind the stores, down through the alleys, picking out things out of the garbage can. There was always chickens and hogs to be fed, and what was unspoiled, humans ate it. That's why he was gathering it. He wasn't gathering garbage to carry to a garbage dump, no. He was gathering food for he and his animals. And just as we talked about the people in town, when I was a boy going to elementary school, in the mornings, at 7 or 7:30 in the morning, people would be lined up along the street waiting for the trucks to come to carry them to the cotton fields. And they would go and chop cotton in the spring, and in the fall, they would pick cotton. But I'm trying to show the working people. But I'm interested in something else. And as you might see, in this corner are the elders, the grandmother and the grandfather. He stands with his hand on her shoulder. She sits on a stump. On contrast to that, the young woman is pregnant. She will be a mother soon. But also the young woman who's standing beside her, she touches her body, making you think that maybe also life is stirring over here. Life is getting ready to pass away here. I was not interested in just showing people and learning to draw hands and feet and heads and necks and bodies, learning the anatomy. I was interested in something else, the meaning of life itself. So this is what I'm trying to refer to. And yet in the background, the masses are still moving on. And this is always true. The masses are always moving. This is always a background, a human background. This is also done on brown cardboard. Cardboard that you take from large cartons. I would think now I'm becoming mature. I have learned how to draw certain things. I'm not struggling any longer with how to make a finger, or how to make a nose, or how to make the head and neck work together. I'm trying to really express an idea, a similar idea. We call this cradle. But the mother and the three children. She is the cradle of these three. She is the base. She is the nest from which life comes forth. And we are interested in this process of life coming forth. When you live in a situation and there's terrible despair and pain, and yet life keeps coming, no. Life keeps coming forth. So we have to take a point of view about it. The drawing, the end of the crayon, I'm using Conte crayon. How many know what Conte crayon is? It's a crayon almost like a wax crayon, but it has a relationship more to charcoal. But one is soft and one can make vigorous lines to create the textures, the rich textures in the form. And I must say that during this time that I was a freshman and sophomore, Charles White came here and painted the mural in the small building in the center of the campus. I believe it was a Young Folks Christian Association building. It was named that when I was here. But he painted the mural, and if you have not seen it, you should go and see it. It's a marvelous, voluminous statement regarding your ancestors' contribution to democracy. You should go and look at it. And if you are a painter, you should be interested in the technique and how he did that. It is a master job of painting with egg tempera. If you know about egg tempera, you know it is not easy to use. But he conquered it. He mastered it. And you must go there. I went there today, and it has been restored, and it's magnificent. It's beautiful. The gentleman who's head of your choir was there practicing. He was doing voice lessons. And it was almost as if the great mural itself was singing. We who went over there enjoyed this man's great bass voice and Charles White's great voices, basses, this choir voices on the wall coming forth. I've done sculpture, and usually I'm inspired to work in clay, and as I'm inspired to make drawing. So cradle was the subject. But as soon as you touch clay, it went three-dimensional. Form changes because the material dictates something. It tells you got to do something else. I couldn't draw with the clay as I was doing in the drawing. So here I'm trying to work the clay with the same idea though, the crater. The female figure, the woman, the mother, the sister, she is the cradle of life from which life springs from. And this subject I thought you might be interested in because here we are using two major figures to create the cradle. And from the cradle again, which is even in the shotgun house form, it is another concept of the cradle, even with music. That's what the strings represent across the shoulder. And one child is in the rear and one child is in the front. But it's a cradle again. It's bringing forth life. It is dealing with the twin figure. And we'll talk about the twin after a while.
But drawing, we are interested in drawing. We're interested in form. We're interested in making form convincing. The voluptuousness and the three-dimensional quality in black and white. Color would even get in our way. We are even afraid of color, but we want to attain the meaning of it just in black and white. And I believe that black and white is enough, that one can carry it all the way. The cradle again. And I have moved from being a student at Hampton up to now over. But I wanted to divert and go this way simply to show you the meaning of subject matter and what it might mean to an artist, and the number of different kinds of concepts that can grow out of one idea of cradle. This is the meaning of art, the flexibility of it. You see, cradle again. See, it's the same subject. And finally here, truly the bursting forth of the cradle. This is the meaning of springtime. Here we relate the drawing to nature, not just to the human thing, but to the whole process of the explosion of life, the explosion of stars, the explosion of seeds. All of these aspects of spring. Then we move in on the child. You remember when we talked about the mother coming from work? Where are the children? You hear today about latchkey children. You people who will study sociology and psychology, you will know about the loneliness of kids. And I saw this kid sleeping on a chair in a doctor's office. And I made a little sketch on a little pad and went home and blew it up, because the meaning of his head was like a egg in the way. His body was sprawled out there. I thought it was a marvelous subject. And then you see it's carried over into sculpture. 3 kids asleep. This is terracotta. This is done in clay and baked in the kiln. I've used white clay, and I've used red iron oxide in the clay in certain parts to create different textures of skin and cloth. But it's clay. And then the quilting party. And from the quilting party, a subject that I've loved all my life. And by the way, you should go and see the exhibit in the museum over in the old Academy building up on the 3rd floor. There is a marvelous exhibit of contemporary art, of African art. And the quilt you will see, or the equivalent of it, you will see there in many forms. But this has been a subject that I've loved, because the cotton that people picked in the fields was used in creating a cover for us to keep us warm. And the women went through this process of making this. And they also brought beauty to it. They chose different colors of cloth to make these little checkerboards and the rest to give us joy in a warm environment. So, and this is the same subject. This from the drawing that was done 20 years before the painting evolved. And actually, it took, 6, 7, or 8 years to do the painting. It was not done in one sitting. It grew. It started out with the 3 women, just as you saw in the drawing. The 3 women sitting quilting. But it grew into them, the quilt. But the quilt is on the floor. The quilt is in the background. The quilt is everywhere. The patterns are everywhere. It was getting involved in an idea, and you couldn't separate yourself from it. So we finally called it Starry Crown. And a part of the meaning of the painting is in the shadows that you see on the back wall. In the shadows of the ancient queens of Africa. Their crowns were made this way. So one who understands the history will be able to understand the picture. And the picture becomes richer in its meaning. And the symbol of the checkerboard, it's the fire checkerboard. It's the triangle checkerboard. It gives the meaning of fire, because fire has to do with creation. But you should go and see the exhibit up there, and you'll find this kind of symbolism carried out in many different ways. Now, we have covered a period of time of life in mainly Gastonia and in the South. Now we're going to Africa. We had wanted to go to Africa for many years. One always wants to know what your roots are. And at that time, we didn't know very much about Africa, so we wanted to go. And Hazel and I went to Africa in 1957 on a UNESCO fellowship. And one of the first things we experienced after being there in Ghana, we went to Ghana first, was drum music. We could hear the drums even at night. There was hardly a moment when you didn't hear drums, someplace in the distance. But the African drum was more than just a musical instrument. It was, we learned soon of the talking drum. So languages in West Africa are tonal, and words can be communicated with the drum just as they can with the mouth. So messages were always being sent. And this is why you always heard the drum. And in some drum portrait, it represented the voice of God. When the drum was beat, this was the sound of the gods. There were ceremonies in the university in Kumasi. I made friends with the registrar. And one day he told me I will be going home soon to participate in a village ceremony. And I'm studying through me, remembering the drum language, because the drum will be masters of ceremony. I thought about that tonight when the young man who was here telling you, well, you must sit over here, you must sit over there. The classes changed at the University of Kumasi. You see, it was tapped out on the drum. And you heard the drum when it was time to change class. So the drum, the language of the drums, these are the talking drums of Ede. And Ede was a township in Nigeria. And when we got there, when Hazel and I arrived in Ede, the drum was just beating. And the Timi came forth. The Timi was the chief. The Timi came forth and held up his hand. And everybody became quiet. And he said, the drum is wrong today. The drum has said we have 2 foreigners who have arrived. And I'm here to correct it. These are not foreigners. These are our brothers and sisters who returned after 400 years. What a beautiful stuff. But the drums, it said we were foreigners. So this drum is made of the elephant ear stretched over a wooden drum form with leather and this is worked by squeezing it, changing the tightness of the top, and the tone changes. So the man who plays this is an expert in drum language, and the people follow, they understand. seeing women walking vigorously, beautifully, with great strength, and yet with sensitivity, dignity. They carry all these weights on their heads. This automatically makes them walk erect and beautiful. You saw nobody practicing with a book on their head to walk straight. I don't know whether you women still do that or not. But they do it through necessity. Their hands are free, and when they're carrying loads on their head. But this was an attitude when we arrived in Ghana. People walking, and people were moving by the hundreds, to and fro, moving. There was vigor, there was energy. It was a marvelous thing. We attempted to capture some of that movement, some of the beauty of the women, some of the strength of the women. The oarsmen and fishermen down on the water were powerful people, powerful men. They went out to sea in their small boats. Their large boats would probably be as long as this stage, and they would still go to sea for 3 weeks. And when they returned, that was a glorious time. The market women met them on the beaches when they would come ashore. And I think this next picture shows this, you see? The market women have met the fishermen. Even in this case, a small shark has been caught. So this is a wonderful time. And people are happy that their husbands and sons are back. And yet they have brought the bounty of the sea. The shepherds in the northern territories of Ghana. The northern territories of Ghana are like the western plains of America. Wide open plains where cattle and sheep, herds of cattle, herds of domestic sheep are raised. And this old man with this sheep was a really powerful object. I was really stimulated and motivated to try to capture some of this, because these people, what I see, I was a Bible student. And when you think in terms of the old patriarchs of the Bible, this is what you thought. This whole land reminded you, thought you were in Bible land somewhere. This is what these scenes meant to me. These people standing with their herds of sheep and cattle. You see, and he is a typical old wise man. Look at his beard, his great eyes. It was marvelous to draw. And the three kings. You know, the three kings, what a wonderful subject. We all hear about the three kings and the wisdom that they have. Again, their dignity, their pride. Can you imagine a kid from North Carolina who hadn't been across the tracks and who had not seen hardly anything in this world, meeting with these kinds of experiences? Can you imagine the pride I felt when I knew nothing about my African history and forebears? This was magnificent. This was fantastic. The experience was so powerful that I have not gotten rid of it yet. I hope I'm sure I never will. But my whole horizon on life, my perspective, it all changed. I got carried away, didn't it? Well, you see, that's what happens when you talk about a subject you love. You see, I love Africa. I love our ancestry. I love to talk about our ancestors. That's why I'm a free man. Because the pride is not just at the moment. As proud as I am of you, but the pride goes back now for centuries. And this is what every one of you must have one day to truly be free. And you see, the Queen Mother of a small village in Nigeria, she looked just like Miss Branch. You know who Miss Branch was? She was my next door neighbor at home who would give me a whipping and if I did something wrong. This is how close a neighbor she was, almost like a member of the family. And when we got to Nigeria, here I see a lady that looks just like Miss Brand. And we find out she's the Queen Mother. She has tremendous power. The king can't make any statement unless he gets the okay from her. This was a matriarchal culture still in existence. You see, and the circles on her dress means forever, forever. This is how you draw forever. You see, her headdress has a certain meaning. It has a meaning that is related to the great boa constrictor, which is power, which is wisdom. It is the woman wisdom that we have lost touch with, that you must regain. All of you women, you are the potential queen mothers and the rulers of the earth. This does not belittle you fellas. It means that your wife will be your queen. That's all that means. Oh yes, I wanted to say one other word. You see the child that stands with her. This child symbolizes her purity. The child symbolizes her purity. And this is why she is respected. And that's why she's divine. And that's why she can advise people. And here was one of the great moments in Ghana that we shall never forget. And it was called a Thanksgiving parade or Durbar or Harvest Festival. But here the women performed. And women and men came forth. This is what they call when the edges of the years meet. It is so beautiful. It's an expression of the new year coming and the old year passing away. The edges of the years are meeting. And notice in the costumes, we are speaking about spring nature. In the light, the blossoms are blooming. In the shadows, the stars are shining. See, they're symbols that tell us something if we simply look. There's no such thing as decorative. Everything has meaning. So this was something that captured our eyes. So rich, so visually rich. And you see they are in clusters. And notice the groups walking under the great umbrellas. And each umbrella represents a constellation. What they are doing, they are having a play that is going on in the sky with the stars. The lesson that I had, the year that I took physics and studied astronomy down in the science lab here at Hampton, this is when it came alive. Before then, it was a matter of statistics and some facts. It didn't have any spirit. But when I asked the people there, tell me what are they dancing for? Tell me what are they saying? What are they singing? And the girls started interpreting and they were singing, our Queen Mother is the moon. She's more beautiful and peaceful than the full moon. She's more beautiful than any lamb or sheep that has ever been born. Our Queen Mother outshines the moon. Our King is the sun. His gold sparkles brighter than the sun. These are the songs they're singing. And they're all singing in call and response. And the drums were beating. There was 100 drums playing that day. This day the earth shook. With human feet, the earth shook. It wasn't shaken from bones or anything like that. It was shaken through human expression, through great beauty and meaning. Wasn't that something to see and witness? I've never gotten over that. One of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, and I'll always remember it. So we don't just sit down and paint a picture, at least I don't. I made sketches. And I wanted you to see the sketches that were made before the painting was done. And again, or let us say a more of a poetic concept, but it's something very important here. We are talking about twins. Twins. You see two boats? Even her garment comes in twos, and she's holding two babies. And there is the sun and the moon in the heavens, coming in twos. What does this mean? And 4 twos make up the 8 twins. Instead of there being one Adam and Eve, there were 4. There were 4. The twin means reciprocity. You must first be true to yourself, because you must be true to your twin. And all of you have twins. You talk to your conscience. You talk to your own spirit. You can get away with stealing something or breaking the law. You can get away because nobody saw you, but you can't get away from what your twin says to you. That's your conscience. That's your twin. So this is a way of illustrating twinness, two-ness. It's a wonderful concept. It's reciprocity. You see, you must give as much as you receive. That's the same thing. And also, as one of the great African writers says, a person is pitiful if they don't have someone to stand beside them. Isn't that beautiful? You must have someone to stand beside you. If you don't, you're lonely in this world. Now, in contrast to the street, we had to come back to America after that wonderful African experience. We had to come back to reality. And the street people are still there. The street people are still here. And I did this painting when I was in Hampton as a student. But its meaning has stayed with me all through the years. Street people and the shotgun, a village, a typical village in Houston, Texas. But it was also during the time when churches, and by the way, this was back in the 60s. This wasn't painted recently. This was painted in the 60s. So you see occurrences and experiences happen over and over again. You see. But yet we have a man who holds a lamp beside the great woman he's standing beside. See, he holds a lamp. The lamp is a symbol of illumination in life, a symbol of change. And when you study Greek art, you will study the Erectium. And on the porches of the Erectium, the maidens hold the porch up. They hold up the temple. They are the temple. So what we are saying really, woman is home. Woman is house. Woman, there is no home without her. That's what we're saying. They're synonymous. They're the same. If you have no mother, you have no home. But we have tried to create the rhythm of the pattern, the repetition, and also the track. This particular picture here is owned by Hampton. This is one of the shotguns with the 3 women. And this is another picture of the shotguns with, you notice the little boy riding the turtle in the background. And we have tried to characterize night and day lifting the veil as he rides up on the turtle. This is the renewal of the ghetto. It's a renewing spirit because he brings light. You see, the light is greatest around him. He brings light. So the rhythm that we observe with the lights and shadows that play upon the shotgun is a marvelous rhythm. The rhythms that the great jazz players play, you can read in the shadows and lights of the shotgun. You see, and even the music that jazz comes from, and we call this "Let My Little Light Shine." That's sort of a religious kind of thing. And you see the young woman here who stepped out of the shotgun into the street. Her little light is shining. She's brilliant. The light comes from within. So every one of you must carry your own light. You do carry your light. So this is some of what we're trying to say. Wheel in the wheel. Again, if you listen to the music that jazz comes from, the spirituals and the gospels, then you know about the wheel in the wheel. This is called the midnight hour. I know you have heard it. You're not too young. You must know that song. It's a drawing, by the way. And our last drawing is really a lithographic drawing, but it is of three women carrying the home. And the story here is wherever the woman goes, she takes the home. Do you know who Horace is? If you don't know, you should find out Horace and find out who was Horace's house. Isis was Horace's house because he was born of Isis. So you see, the woman, the mother, is the house. And the three mothers are carrying the house wherever they go. In the house, you see the birthing bed, you see the eating table, the life, the sources of life, and that which gives life. The two chairs sit on the porch. So you have the meaning of life in its generation. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Thank you, Dr. Biggers, from all of us for that magnificent and really inspiring lecture. For those of you who wish to and can stay a little longer, Dr. Biggers will take a few questions. But before I open the floor to his questions, I would like to take this opportunity to also recognize and introduce to you the person who stands beside John Biggers, Hazel Biggers. Would you please stand? She wouldn't mind me telling you that she's Hampton class of 1947. Is there a question for Dr. Biggers or some questions for Dr. Biggers? There's a microphone in the aisle or in either aisle. Anyone? Yeah.
Mr. Biggers, I wanted to find out if studying about different artists during your time in schools or whatever.
You need to talk really slow and clear because the acoustics Lips are hard coming up on the stage.
Okay,
Please.
I'm sorry. I wanted to find out if studying about art throughout your academic career, that if any of that affected any of your artwork, maybe studying about other artists.
Oh, well, certainly. Let us say first, Victor Lowenfeld affected me most. He was one of the greatest teachers of the 20th century. He was a fantastic teacher. He could get into the soul of a person. He slipped there very easily and motivated you to move with your own spirit. He was my first influence. While a sophomore here, Charles White and Betty Catlett came to this campus, and he painted the mural on their campus, and Betty taught sculpture in the Art Center. And I studied with both of them. And they were tremendous teachers. Tremendous teachers. I also understood something of their spirit beyond just the classroom, what they believed in. And this has everything to do with an artist. And there were other artists that I was greatly influenced by. And there were many. There were old masters who I loved, who I still love. There is a bond that you soon make between what artists produce and your way of thinking. Yes, there were artists of influence, which I'm very glad of.
Good evening, Mr. Biggers. My name is Alpha Conte. I'm a senior art major here. And I'd like to know if you could come by Armstrong Slater and critique some of my paintings.
As long as it's not tonight.
Hello, Mr. Biggers. My name is Fumilayo Shioye, and I'm from Nigeria. And I wanted to know, when did you go to Nigeria? And do you want to go back anytime soon? And also, did you try and do any of the ebony carvings or bronze statues or anything like that?
The last part.
First, I'll answer the last. Yes, I want to bring all of it back. But we have a collection of about 600 pieces of African art at home. I live with African art every day. I was tremendously, profoundly moved by African culture. We live with the team here of Ede, in Ede, Nigeria. You know where that is? Yeah, it's going north. It's north of Ibadan. We lived with him there for a while. Our trip to Nigeria was wonderful. I'm still inspired by our experiences. And we tried to go back. Oh, yes, you asked me, when did we go? We went first in January 58 is when we first went. We tried to go back, I believe, in 78. And the war was going on. And they would not allow the plane to land, and we went back to Ghana instead. Yes, I hope one day to go back to Nigeria. And I must say that to you, I have Nigerian friends in Houston, Texas. I speak with Nigerian people all the time, as well as other African people. Houston has attracted a great number of Africans from many countries. And we have an African organization there. And believe it or not, my wife and I were made honorary chiefs by the African people in Houston.
Thank you very much.
How you doing? Can you hear me? Just a mic check. Can you hear me?
just noticing that it seems, or it appears that women has had a great effect on inspiring a lot of your artwork. And I'm just curious as to what role your wife plays in the development of your artwork, and especially what do you see or what do you think of when you see, I guess, the state of nature, I guess, among a lot of college students today. Do you feel that the role of women has diminished, that we don't respect them enough? Because in rap music, I like to rap, and I feel that, it's a lot that goes on and stuff like that.
I think we got the last one.
In a macho society, women are diminished. And you must know that America is a macho society. This is why we believe in war. This is why on the weekends you see nothing but athletics. This is a man's world here. And women are demeaned in a macho culture. But I am so glad that you have, more so than any country probably on earth, the great liberating movement of women. They demand their position in life to be equal and superior to all people, which they are. They're stronger than men, you know. Also, I made a reference to women, and I wrote my doctoral thesis on women. And also I learned early to admire my mother for her heroic work in raising 7 children. That's where it first came from. And I love my sisters and my wife and all of my friends, women friends, and I know that they are equal and most of them are superior to me. You just have to face that fact. But I wanted to say, I've also learned the role of the ancient women of the world. When Alexander conquered, they called him Alexander the Great because he would destroy women's societies in the world. It was the great sacred shrines that he captured. And we killed them. He thought he could get the wisdom to give to men. He didn't. He didn't understand what he was doing. And so much war is fought and we don't understand. The wisdom of the women of the ancient world, they understood time and the characteristics of each age. And the characteristics became the lessons in their shrine they taught to the younger girls. This is what the women's societies were about. Therefore, they could predict what was going to happen because they knew the characteristics of the ages. And it took 12 ages to make up a sidereal year, which was 26,000 years. They knew all of this. This was what they taught in their school. Men had no relationship with this. Men were strutting roosters, mainly. And they soon learned to steal and to organize and brutalize and take what they thought they wanted. But you can't take wisdom. So the day that women regained their position of the wisdom givers, which is a natural relationship with the natural world that they have, we will not fear being destroyed. We will not fear war. We will find another way to solve our problem. And we will re-enter a golden age. That's the reason why I admire women and wish that women very soon receive their rightful position in this society.
There are 2 gentlemen standing, and we'll take your 2 questions as the final questions, so whichever.
Well, Dr. Biggers, my question to you is that I noticed in a lot of your paintings that you use a lot of symbolism. And one thing that I've noticed that's repeated over and over again is the washboard and the kettle. And I'd like for you to tell me what the symbolism of that is.
Well, I think you know that water and fire are two of the main elements of life. Birth and rebirth is usually characterized through baptism in the water and the fire. That's part symbolism. So one of our traditional vessels that we know very well, well, at least I knew very well because things changed, was the old wash pot. And under the wash pot, we built a fire. And in the wash pot went lye salt, dry soap, where the clothes, soiled clothes, was boiled and transformed. You see? Boil and transform. It was a transforming process. Also, I use the pot as a symbol of the womb. And since my mother scrubbed on a scrub board, instead of a cross, I used the washboard that was her cross. And I use it as a symbol of her spirit. And that's the reason why I use wash pots and washboards in my painting. It's a symbol of her spirit. It's a symbol of her cross.
Dr. Biggers, my name is Deron Bryce. I'm a freshman architect major. And I know that you said you came here to study plumbing, but I wanted to know if there was a particular event or painting that you saw, or a particular series of events that prompted you to follow art instead of plumbing.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I want to tell you a story. When I finished high school, and I had been a fireman in high school, I fired furnaces. This is the way I paid my room and board in high school. And I had to get up in the morning at 4 o'clock, and we had about 8 furnaces on our little campus, and I would have to go and fire those to build up the steam and the hot water so that the kids in the dormitories could have bathing water and heat in their room. So I was doing this for 3 years in high school. So I already understood something about plumbing. And when I came to Hampton, I came as a work student in the plumbing department. I couldn't have come to Hampton if I had to pay my way. There was no money. So I received a job in the plumbing department. But when I was getting ready to finish high school, the principal said to me one day, "John, are you planning to go to college?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Where are you planning to go?" I said, "I'm planning to go to Tuskegee." You heard of Tuskegee? Okay. Tuskegee is a sister school of Hampton, and the Booker Washington founded. So anyway, he said to me, he said, "I don't want to dictate to you, but maybe if you would choose Hampton, it would be better. You can get just as good education at Hampton as you could at Tuskegee." He said, "But what's important, you will probably meet people in Hampton that you won't meet at Tuskegee." And I always say, I came to Hampton to be a plumber, but I met Victor Longwell.
John Biggers, you honor us by being here tonight, and thank you so much. Mr.